Welcome back to Just One Question. And I am thrilled to have my good friend and colleague Benjamin Evett with us this time. Benjamin has been a professional theater artist for many years. And about 8 years ago, that didn't feel like enough. So he decided he was going to express himself in another medium, and he began writing the first fruit of his labors, entitled Joy, holding it up now, was shortlisted for the Rubery Prize and is a speculative fiction set in the first decade of the 23rd century. Benjamin, welcome. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great, thanks, Nick. It's good to be here. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful fall day here, and enjoying life.
Wonderful. Glad to have you. And we do have just one question for you as an author of speculative fiction, is that in the past decade or so, as novelists such as you have written this kind of speculative fiction, science fiction, and so on, um, a theme that has come up over and over again is post-apocalyptic scenarios of one kind or another. And I am just been intrigued, been dying to ask one of the band of writers of apocalyptic fiction, why is that the case? Why the focus on the apocalypse and or the post-apocalypse?
The post-apocalypse. Yes, well, I mean, science fiction or speculative fiction has always been very much a really a way of looking at our current state of affairs
Hmm.
through a unique lens that sort of allows you to brush away all the stuff from the present and really focus on some of the big issues, some of the things that are kind of underneath everything. And
Hmm.
so it's always in many ways, I think, been representative of what's going on in society. You know, if you look back to like the great science fiction novels of, say, the 60s and the 70s, Robert Heinlein and
Mm.
people like that, it was all about exploration, space travel, new worlds, aliens. There was, I think, with the beginning of the rocket age, there was a lot of anticipation, hope, excitement about what the universe reveals. Um,
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
exactly, exactly. And I think that these days, for one thing, we're much more aware of the sort of the limitations that offers. The fact, that we really cannot travel to other stars. And, if you look on some of the forums that sometimes I have spent my time on with other science fiction writers, a lot of them go who are interested in that are saying, well, what's a reasonable way to come up with faster and light travel? And it becomes
Hmm.
it makes it a little more challenging. But more importantly, I would say it really has to do with a couple of big things. One, these are obviously very unsettled times.
Hmm. Hmm.
And particularly this past decade, there's a great deal of uncertainty. And I think in many ways that's driven by what I would say is the biggest influence on this particular genre, which is the ever encroaching reality of cataclysmic climate change. And that just seems to be getting nearer and nearer. The weather just keeps getting more unstable. And the reality of that, particularly for people interested in speculative fiction or science fiction, is impossible to ignore. And so
Hmm.
we're looking forward at a world that literally is falling apart,
Hmm.
and with a great deal of uncertainty. And so I think people are interested in, when that seems to when it seems likely something like that's going to happen,
Hmm.
what's going to happen next?
Hmm.
And so I think that's those are two big drivers of the situation. I mean, I should say that in designing my own world, it is pretty challenging to get rid of most of the people on the planet. There's an awful lot of us, and there's an awful lot of uh, there's an awful lot of stuff that we've created,
Mm.
and we're a pretty hard species really to get rid of. So in fact, in my book, not only does climate change play a fairly important role, but one of my characters talks about what he calls the 10 plagues that sort of wiped out the planet, which was, numerous pandemics, global warming causing massive, migrations and domestic instability, the collapse of the food chain, as well as probably a few nuclear wars thrown in there for good measure to kind of get the population down to the level that I wanted it for my little story. Because the thing about apocalyptic fiction also is that it's not just about the apocalypse. It's about what happens next, and it's really about the rebuilding, the things that are eternal, the things that keep us going, and an opportunity in some ways to get back to fundamentals
Hmm.
about we live in such a complicated world, and sometimes you want to find ways to just strip all of that away and get back to essentials about what people are about, how they relate, and how they survive. Uh, and so destroying everything in the world is a pretty good way to do that as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is that even though we're talking about the end of life as we know it, what in fact actually is at the core of this kind of speculative fiction, as you suggest, is in some ways inherently optimistic because it's about what happens next, how you rebuild, what are the basic essentials of human life that will remain no matter what happens, sort of. And that's profoundly positive, profoundly optimistic that there is a core of humanity that's going to endure.
Yeah, so my book, Joy, really does, all that stuff has happened. And it very much is, it's about a journey that these two characters take to try to find joy in the world, and the whole notion of what joy is and how we find it is central to is why the book is called that. And so while it does use one of the main characters is an android, is an inhuman like android, and uh, but is is still is growing, learning, developing through the course of this. And what you come to find is that the world is rebuilding, beginning again, and maybe in a more in a way that is truer, righter, better than what we have. So yeah, I think an optimism is often a part of that. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Benjamin Evett, everyone, with his post-apocalyptic and yet profoundly hopeful novel, Joy. So you can get it in bookstores and Amazons near you. And Benjamin, thank you so much for being on Just One Question.
You're welcome. I hope people enjoyed the discussion.